I want to talk to you real quick about chemistry, what my goals are for the class, and what I'm going to do in the classroom, and then what you can expect that you'll have to do at home. So let's kind of get started. So chemistry, we all know we're going to be meeting these days 3 days a month. And what my real goals for this class is to introduce you to all the chemistry parts. This is kind of probably the first time you've really had chemistry before, so to make sure they get all that kind of content in there. I want to provide students with the opportunity to talk to each other to solve problems. We're going to be coming up with procedures on their own, and that's going to take a lot of discussions. A lot of times students are a little frightened on, oh, you want me to do this? I don't know how to do it. There's one thing to read from a textbook and understand what they're saying. It's another thing to take that and apply it in the actual setting. Number 3 here, like I just talked about, coming up with their own procedure. And then number 4, writing a real scientific lab report. That's like my biggest goal, I'd have to say, is getting that lab report all set up. So the nature of the course is we're going to be doing lab every single week. A typical day would look like we're going to kind of intro with something that's an inquiry sort of thing. What do you think about this? Let's wonder about this. What chemistry is actually happening here? Then we're going to kind of, a typical lecture might happen then, and then do some practice. I want to be there for any of the math especially, or there's a lot of math type things where they've got to practice. And I want to be there for the practice part to help them through that, and then definitely do a lab with that. So every day will definitely include a lab, and every day will include some sort of me lecturing and then practicing of some kind. Not a real typical lecture. My lecture would be like 3 or 5 minutes long, and then them doing a lot of the problems. I have provided a bunch of resources. You can click on here. It's posted in Google Classroom. So since we're meeting 3 days a month, but I still won't be able to get through everything. And what I'll be able to do is intro it, give them that base, but I'm not going to be able to have lots of time for practice. I'm going to pick labs over lots of like real practice stuff. So that's going to be something I expect them to do at home. If they're struggling through things, I provided this resource page, which really gives them a lot of practice problems. So with videos, and the videos are mostly what I made. If not, I'm pretty sure they're almost all made by me, or they're definitely vetted by me and something I've used in my classroom for years. So that is that. I've got lots of practice problems on there with showing the work, or videos that actually walk you through it too. Some people love videos, some people do not. I just have those for you if you need it. Okay, going back to the syllabus. We won't be able to cover every topic in depth, but what I do think we're going to be able to do is definitely be able to talk about every part and do practice problems so that when they read the textbook, it doesn't seem so foreign to them. So I've done a lot of my stuff. You can see there's, in the syllabus, we're going to have a before reading. This is what you should read before, and then an after. And I've chosen the before readings to be something that's not super in-depth or difficult. So like this page 1 through 18, it's chapter, the first module. You know that every textbook usually has like an intro kind of chapter. That's what this one is. So reading the first 18 pages is very like broad and going over all the parts of science in a way. The other parts I'm going to have them read will be more easier stuff to read. So like here, page 44 to 60. You can see that I've provided textbook pages for depending on what edition you have. I have the 3rd edition at home, but I've also looked at the pages for the 2nd edition. And then what we're going to do in class is the more difficult sort of stuff. And then after, they're going to be reading pages, and it will be the stuff we talked about in class, a little bit extra also, but hopefully when they read it, they're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this, this is good. And then they should do the practice problems afterwards. It's one thing to be able to like, yeah, I know what you talked about in class, I got it, I'm good. And it's another thing to be able to do practice problems a couple days later based on what we learned in class, which is what the textbook has. And that will bring the students' understanding to a better level. So if there's something that I really want them to know, like a skill I want them to have, then I'll have that over here, like your goal should be to know how to do this. Most of the time, you can see later on, I don't do a lot of reading ahead of time because most of it isn't like historical stuff. Like this atomic theory part right here, it's a lot of history about the atom. Well, that part I think is easier for students to read about than to do math. And so I want to be the one to do math with them first because I think it's easier to do it when someone's showing you in class rather than you reading about it and looking at the problem and being frightened by it. So most of the reading will happen after class. But the after class part will include doing the reading. That's what this column is on the right. Doing the reading and any tests that you want to do, that's up to you and the student. Any practice problems you want to do, that's up to you. I'm not giving any tests in class. That's on your choice. But what I will be doing are weekly assignments in labs. So there'll be a weekly assignment that will always include some sort of questions. So let's say we're going to talk about atomic theory. That'll be our second time in class. Atomic theory, then I'm going to have questions after that class, like about 5 questions to make sure the student actually understood what I talked about in class. That's kind of a gauge for me, like how well did I do? How can I do better for your student? Trying to keep knowing how your student learns. And it also communicates to you, yes, they got out of class what they should have. So every week after class, we'll have class on Wednesday. Thursday, you're going to get an email that says, this is what we did in class. Here's the Google form questions. This is where I'm going to ask your student questions. Did you get out of class what you should have gotten? And then I'm also going to state what the assignment is due for the next week. If there happens to be a lab that we turned in and students didn't quite finish it, it'll be in there in that list too. Like, hey, remember we did this lab? You had like 2 problems left to do. Submit that by the end of the week so I can grade it before we have class next. That'll be a typical announcement. So these quizzes I'm going to send out are really what we would call like a formative quiz, meaning it tells you what do your student know now. It's not like like an end of the line sort of thing, like this is what they know, that's it, you got a C, that's all they know. This is this is what they know. They should probably do more reading in the textbook, do a couple more practice problems to make sure they really know what's going on. So you can use those grades how you wish, but that's how I'm going to use the grades is, oh, everyone did not get this, we need to do some more next week in class maybe. Okay, but what we're going to mostly be working on are lab assignments. So lab assignments are where the strong majority of the grades will be. Those weekly kind of mini quizzes, you can decide how you want to go with it, but the lab assignments, this will be like your more set grades. So we'll do a lab in class. Lots of times they'll turn it in before they leave, or they'll do it with a partner, and then you'll still see those grades up in the classroom, so you can know if they did 100% or they made a few mistakes and they need some help. But also, main thing we're working on here is, I have a link right here, is writing a lab report. So we're not going to just jump in and write a lab report right away. We're going to take it step by step. So at the beginning, we'll work on kind of the easier stuff. Actually, day 1, what we're going to be working on is data tables. So can they create a proper data table? Can they use sig figs? Sig figs are proper measuring. And a lot of people think like, yeah, I can use a ruler, it's fine. But it's actually, I find that 90% of students don't use a ruler properly. I know it seems funny. You'll have to ask them about that the first day of class. So what we're going to do is we'll do a lab, and I will have them complete a lab and then turn it into me. And then I'm going to be putting in down here in these columns the grades for the student. Like let's say they got a C. That's my C column right there. They didn't really know how to organize the data. They had lots of errors. And maybe that was their first go at it, right? But then we talked about it in class, and they suddenly started doing better. They got a B or maybe an A on it, and now they really know how to do data tables. So in here you're going to see dates and comments from me that shows you like currently they know this is what they're doing wrong. Now they've got this is doing great. So as time goes on, every student in classroom is going to have this rubric, and you'll see that it's populated. Like now we talked about procedure, and here's where they are, a C. Usually procedures start out in the C's, as well as errors. People have a real tough time with those, and that's fine because I know that part, and then I'm going to hopefully gradually get them towards a better error. So this is where you're going to find how they did at the beginning, and I'm a big growth mindset kind of person, how they have grown throughout the year to really create a beautiful lab report. And at the end of the year, I've got a lab report where they have to write all the parts. But throughout the year, they're not doing all the parts. They're doing maybe on this one, just the data table and calculations. And then on this one, they're doing just the errors and the calculations. Calculations happen every time because it's chemistry, right? And then conclusions, and we're really going to look at models when we get to gas laws and such. So that's where you're going to find a lot of the grades also. Okay, so we talked about this one. Before class, they're going to get these parts completed. Not very often they do that. Most of the work is going to be completed after class. You'll get that update email from me. All my communication is going to come from Google Classroom, which looks like this. So I'll be putting out an announcement. If you have, your student will get one because every student has to have one. And then if you personally, you'll get an email also that shows that sort of stuff. You're going to be like a student also. So everything your student sees, you'll also see. You just won't get grades. You can see in the classwork, I've already got the syllabus schedule put up and the resource page. The schedule syllabus will continually change based on how we're going along if we need more time on something, so don't print it out. It's not set in stone. Every week I would always look at it electronically. And then your grades will eventually go here. And yeah, how you do from grades is totally up to you. You as the parent give the final grades because I'm only able to really get you lab grades and I'm not doing tests. Okay, I hope that cleared up some things. I think it'll kind of help as we go on when things actually populate in here. If you haven't gotten your Google account, I have put in all the ones that people had to me, so send me your email and we'll get you in there if you're not in there. Otherwise, we'll see you soon.